first moments of a Fire Emblem game should get you excited for the rest of the game while also setting the tone for the story going forward. So today we're going to be ranking the games based on their first cutscenes, not the opening cinematic, but the first thing you see after starting a new save file. If you're interested in this video topic and ones like it, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the page. Hello friends, Adam here with FED. So as I said in the intro, we're going to be ranking every single opening cutscene in the series. The mainline series, I should say. I'm not going to look at like Heroes or the Warriors games. Mainline series. And I'm also not going to be looking at Tearing Saga or Berwick Saga or whatever, or Visteria Saga. People tend to say like, oh, why didn't you do those? Because they're not Fire Emblem by name, and that's what I'm doing today. So let's start from the bottom. And I don't think this would surprise anyone who's played all the games. The beginning of New Mystery of the Emblem, which is the 12th entry or a remake of the third game in the series, or a remake of the second half of the third game of the series. It has a pretty lackluster opening. It's introducing you to the Avatar character Chris, as well as his platoon of dudes. And it's not that interesting. It's honestly pretty boring. It doesn't get you hyped up for the rest of the game, and that's sad. And that's really the big thing. If it doesn't hype me up for the rest of the game, get me excited for the rest of the story or just the gameplay in general, I think it's a pretty poor opening. So New Mystery falls at the very bottom for me. Next, we have Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valentia. Now you may be surprised to see one of the newer games so low, considering they have an actual like opening cinematic with like an actual CG cutscene and stuff that looks pretty. I have a major issue with Echo's opening in that it is totally unnecessary. It doesn't add anything to the plot to show you that. It's just like shock factor. And it ends up, it kind of spoils things in the end. I don't like the way they do that. I guess in the context of knowing the whole story, it's just a silly moment that doesn't even really fit the game in my opinion. But then on top of that, even if you are going in blind, you just have no idea what's going on. It's pointless. It's a really poor use of in media res, which is usually a term used in like movies, where some spot in the movie, usually early in the movie, they'll show a midpoint or the end of the movie out of context, and then you'll see it later in context, and it'll make more sense. And they do it for some dramatic effect. And I think there is a game in the series that does it very, very well. But Echoes does not, and that annoys me. So it's a pretty cutscene, the voice acting is fine, but I take issue with the poor use of this in media res concept. Next, we have a few that I'm just going to kind of lump together. First, we have FE1, which is, the Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light, the first game of the series for the NES. There's not a whole lot going on here. It's just, oh no, bandits are attacking Talus Castle, and Marth has a conversation with Sita and Jagan about it, and they go off on their adventure. It's his call to action, right? And Shadow Dragon has much the same, except there's like an opening cinematic before that. I'm not counting the prologue for Shadow Dragon, even though I did for New Mystery. It's my list, I can do what I want, but that's just what I'm doing. The prologue for Shadow Dragon just feels kind of weird to me. It's not like mandatory. You skip it if you play on hard or above, whereas New Mystery, you always play the prologue. Anyways, Shadow Dragons is kind of whatever. It's just the like they do like they show a map thing, and they have the cute little images that pop up. And honestly, of this style, it's probably one of the better ones because of these like images and little art pieces that they show off. And Shadow Dragon has a lot of those that are pretty cute, pretty good. And along with that, we have Mystery of the Emblem and Binding Blade, you could throw Thracia in this group, but I'm going to talk about that one later. So you have like Mystery of the Emblem Book 2, Shadow Dragon, and Binding Blade all do this thing where they show a map, they show maybe some arrows moving on it, or show key locations and talk about the world, do a little bit of world building before going into a smaller character conflict, usually involving some brigands that are assailing some castle, and then you have to save them. I don't know. It's not offensive. It's just a little boring. Next, we have Fates. I do love watching Ryoma do like flips and stuff, and him about to clash with Xander is a really cool moment. I do like that. The whole thing with Azura singing, I don't really care. It doesn't really feel like it fits the opening cinematic thing, but it's another use of the in media res concept, and I don't think it's done well here, especially since it's only showing like 6 chapters into the future. And like, well, what's the point of that? You know, you might as well just have Korn wake up as he does in the beginning of the game, and that should just be the first scene. Have it be little character moments instead, which I think is done well in another game in the series. Gaiden being this high is probably surprising to a lot of people. You may look at Gaiden and be like, that's not even an opening cinematic or an opening cutscene at all. But I think it deserves some points for being interesting in that it's like an interactable cutscene where you control Alm in Ram Village, and you have to actually walk to talk to Lucas, and then you have to walk to talk to Misa, and then you have to walk to, you know, it's just like essentially cutscenes with walking. I don't know. That's like popular in modern gaming, right? Like Last of Us and all that. Cutscenes, but you get to walk around. People like that, right? I don't know. But it just felt like it was trying to do something different, and I appreciated it. I think it did okay. It didn't shove world building down your throat. It was fine. It was fine. Next we have Thracia, which does do the same kind of thing that, you know, Binding Blade does or Shadow Dragon does, where it has the opening with the map and talking about the conflict and the world building. But the character stuff is what's really good here. Once you zoom in to the initial battlefield, the whole reason that Leaf's journey begins is because of the conflict in this chapter. It's not something like he's been on the run, he's been hiding for years now, but it isn't until his friend, or friends I should say, are captured, and he feels that's his call to action, and it's a really urgent one, and it honestly feels desperate. And I think it's done really well in this opening. It sets the tone for the rest of the game. You're definitely going to be fighting uphill. You get that feeling from Leaf here. Of the like more basic openings, I think Thracia is one of the better ones. Not the best, but one of the better ones. Blazing Blade is a very simple opening. For whatever reason, the avatar character, you know, Mark, or you could name him whatever you want, your self-insert. For whatever reason, you're passed out in Sakai, and Lynn finds you. And the first thing you see is you're greeted with the art of Lynn holding like a bowl of soup that she's getting either for herself or for you, probably for you. And then you have a little conversation with her, and then she says, oh no, there's bandits. We need to go fight these people to get them out of here. Or whatever. Or I'll protect you, I'll save you, whatever. It's really simple, but it is a really, I don't know, it's just so memorable to me. It was my first introduction to Fire Emblem, and I think it was a lot of people's first introduction to Fire Emblem here in the West. And it is done in a way that just feels, I don't know, it feels good. It's fun. I just like it. I don't have any like good reasons behind it. I would go so far as to say that people only like Lynn as much as they do because of this cutscene. You know, there's some characters that are like totally defined in media by like a few key moments. I think that is Lynn's. Without that, she would be even more forgettable than she already is in the main story of Blazing Blade. Path of Radiance was a hard one for me to rank. I like it. It's also just kind of boring. But that's how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like a mundane, almost like slice of life for the Grail Mercenaries moment, where Ike is training with his father, and he just gets destroyed by him. It does a good job of showing how far Ike has to go. Grail is always the like a mark for Ike. It's who he is trying to become. And him getting so easily just handled by him in a practice sword fight is a good way to illustrate that he's nowhere near that. And then the whole game is a journey for him to become like Grail. And you could even argue that he doesn't really achieve that until the next game. But I don't know. It depends on how you look at it, I guess. But then there's the cute foreshadowing with Mist looking like their mother, who he has a little like fever dream about, with the context of later chapters in Path of Radiance, learning more about Ike's mother, and then also the context of Radiant Dawn, that comparison is actually pretty cool between Mist and Elena. The opening of Engage is odd. It's similar to, like Fates or Awakening, where it is you think it's going to be an opening that, happens later. But it never does. I don't know. My first playthrough, once I got to a certain point, I was like, when's this going to happen? When is Alir going to run through a hallway while running past his 4 friends to fight Sombron by himself with Marth? And it never happens. It's kind of weird. I don't really get where that comes from. It's this weird, I guess it's like a weird like premonition type thing that Alir has in his 1,000-year sleep that he's going to be working with these people. I don't know why he would get that said premonition, but he does. And I rate it lower because I don't like that it shows off Ivy being a friend of the Divine Dragon. I don't like that it shows off her being a friend of Alir. Obviously, we had all like the pre-release information, and we knew she was going to be playable. But the fact that she is a villain in the first, third of the game, or the first fourth of the game, first third of the game, it kind of takes the air out of that. She's going to turn around and be your friend, no matter how sadistic or whatever she seems in cutscenes before then. So for that, I knock points off of it, but ultimately, I think it's fun. It's bright. It's exciting. It gets you excited for the rest of the game, and I think that's what it should do. This next one is the most generic of the top 5, which is probably why it's number 5. But Genealogy of the Holy War sets the tone so well in its opening moments. As soon as you press New Game, there is ominous music that plays, which if you've played Genealogy, it's not a happy story for a very long time. It's not happy. It's a very sad story. And the opening being this ominous music, it just shows the history of the world in a very simple calendar, or it's not even like a calendar, but like a timeline of events that happen. Some really messed up things you can read that happen, number 1. And then once that's through, you get your like traditional map thing where it shows the different places, gives you key names and stuff, which is a little over the top. They do a lot of name dropping, which is a little overwhelming. But then you get into the pre-chapter conversation with the characters. There's some fun characterization. The music is on point for getting you excited to play and get you going into the story. It always hits home for me. I like it a lot. I can understand why others might not, but it definitely, for me, deserves to be in the top 5 openings in the series. Upon revisiting all these openings for this list, this is the one that surprised me the most, that I liked it as much as I did. Because I don't love Sacred Stones. It's probably in my I'd say like bottom 5 games in the series. I don't enjoy playing it. It's not fun for me. I don't know what it is. For a lot of people, it's their favorite. Some people love like that GBA style and everything that has Sacred Stones has going for it with the split class promotions and everything. But for me, it just misses the mark. It just misses the mark a little bit. But I will say, this opening is awesome. Yeah, they do the map thing where they have to do the world exposition dump. But past that is awesome, where Renee Castle is being seized. Erica has to run away with Seth, but the real kicker is the fight between Seth and Valter. And Seth, who at this point you don't know he's a powerhouse, but you soon realize he is, and it sets up Valter to be this incredibly imposing enemy, and really sets him up to be like Erica's final test, kind of to like her, like if she overcomes this, she's ready to become, the leader of Renee or whatever. That's kind of how it feels. I would have maybe had Seth fight a couple of weaker enemies or something in that same cutscene and have him just destroy them super easily to show off that Seth is very powerful, and then have him lose to Valter and be like, oh, geez, this Valter guy, not to be trifled with. But even without that, I think it's still really good. Now we're into the best of the best, peak Fire Emblem openings. The top 3 are all amazing. I could have ordered them differently if I wanted to, but this is what I settled on, and I'm pretty happy with it. So at number 3, it's Radiant Dawn. Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn has some weird story moments throughout it, but it nails the opening better than most. Of course, it's like meme-tastic with is that the Dawn Brigade line? You know, that's funny. Everyone loves that. But it does such a good job of setting up Micaiah and the Dawn Brigade's desperate situation and just kind of showing that they're on the run. And for the first, 4 chapters of the game, you're on the run. That's what you're doing. You literally get like put in jail and have to run from jail at one point. You're running from enemies. Like that's what you do. It's not until later that you like kind of form a Dane resistance army or liberation army, I should say, and that you become more on the offensive. And I think it's really cool. And also, it just looks good. It looks good. The voice acting's honestly pretty fine. Anyways, this opening's great. It shows off how like bad Soth has become. If you've played Path of Radiance, you know that Soth was a total chump in that game, and then you get to watch him just dismantle a whole group of dudes. And then it also shows that Micaiah isn't worthless. Like, yeah, she needed to be rescued, but she ultimately is what allows them to escape with her light magic. Also, it's kind of a fun thing that we actually got to see how light magic hurts people. Apparently it blinds them, which is pretty freaking metal. But yeah, that's cool. I love the Radiant Dawn opening. So good. I think Awakening is where Fire Emblem really took its first major stride into good cinematics. It just looks pretty. It's on the 3DS, which is impressive, but it just looks pretty. The opening to Awakening, it shows the fight between Robin, Chrom, and Valadar. And it's just fun to watch. It's just good. It's just like good fight scene. It's fun choreography. It's basic in moments, but it's also just fun. And I am going to cheat a little bit for it and go to post the premonition chapter where you see Robin stab Chrom with the lightning bolt. And I know I kind of dogged on Fates and Echoes for showing the middle of the game or late game cutscenes in the beginning, but Awakening does it in such a way that makes you question Robin's character, the self-insert. That's you. You're supposed to question your own motives as a character because from what you just saw, you kill the other main character in the future, is what you can assume. And it makes for a really interesting dynamic for the player to consider, is my self-insert evil? And, as you go on, you learn why that all actually happened. And it gets a little less meaningful once you actually get to that point. But to start as an opener, I think it's pretty solid. I think a lot of people could guess what was going to be number 1. I don't think I'm surprising anyone here. But Fire Emblem Three Houses has the most visceral, unhinged opening in the series. And this might be one of the best cutscenes in the series. So you're led to believe that Rhea isn't Cyros, but come on. I mean, who didn't play Three Houses to start and been like, oh wait, that's the chick from the beginning cutscene, when you saw Rhea. Rhea is so just wacky and just has a temper, and you can see that it's all foreshadowed in this cutscene where Cyros just absolutely loses it on Nemesis and not only kills him but gets up close and personal, stabs him multiple times with a knife and just destroys him, and all while screaming about how he took everything from her and killed everyone she loves. And then she grabs the Sword of the Creator and hugs it and says something about I have you now, mother, or they're gone now, mother. And then she has the blood on her hands and on her face from the sword. It is something else, man. It just hits different. It really just goes to show that this isn't your mom's happy-go-lucky fantasy story. This game is full of all sorts of terrible things, human experiments, racism, classism, all sorts of bad stuff. It's just a different tone than what you're used to, and especially after coming from Fates and Awakening. It's just a different tone, man. The tone definitely falls more in line with something like a Thracia or a genealogy to start. It is really freaking cool. Really freaking cool. But I don't think anyone would disagree with that. And if you do, let me know in the comments. I'd love to know your thoughts on my list. It is obviously totally subjective. These are just my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Also, thank you for making it to the end of the video. I'm assuming you kind of liked it if you made it this far. So please like the video, click the little thumbs up button. It helps a lot. It's a simple thing you can do. And please subscribe to the channel. We've sat around 19,000 subscribers for like a year now, or 2 even. I would love to get up to 20,000. So please subscribe, help us get there. That'd be very, very cool of you. And look forward to more videos and streams and all that. I'm excited to keep making stuff for you guys. It's been fun. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you next time.